Hi everyone, it is Friday, August 18th, and I just finished filming a tour of my garden going into late summer, which is only a couple days away. I mean, I guess we're still kind of like in the middle third of summer, but in a couple days it will be late summer. So that's what I'm kind of doing. It's a tour of the garden going into late summer. And we'll just keep maybe posting those every so often here. But I wanted to film that yesterday, and then we had a weather event. So I had to put it off until today, which I didn't love because I had to wait until the end of work, and I don't know, it got dark way faster than I anticipated it would. And so anyway, please enjoy the garden tour, and I will see you again shortly. Okay, so starting with this bed behind the house. This is just a regular flower bed. Some things have taken off and some things haven't. As you can see, my zinnias are really what's done the best. So this variety is called Senora, and I planted this at the end of May or early June. I don't remember if it was the last weekend in May or the first weekend in June, but I have this one in bloom finally, and these guys are working on it, but nothing yet. I had to prop him up with a bamboo stick just because he didn't do anything. And then these are carnations, which admittedly take a hot minute to grow. I didn't really know that, and I could have planted them out a little sooner than I did, if I'm being honest. I might start these in trays over the winter and actually just transplant them next year. And then these, also zinnias, of course. Variety called Oklahoma Ivory, and they're just I planted them because I thought as a cutting flower that they'd be a nice neutral. So we have some here, and if you shake a zinnia down by the base of the stem, based on how much it can wiggle, but it can't flop around, that's how you know it's ready for cutting. And then this is Gomphrena, also called Globe Amaranth. And they're not open yet. These have taken a minute to do their thing. I'll try again next year. And then this is another zinnia, Mazurkia is the variety. And they're so pink and white and pretty, and I don't know. They're just gorgeous. I can't handle them. So we have some here, and then I had done a late planting of some calendula. So this is the flower bed behind the house. And then I just have some things growing in pots here. Some leeks that I transplanted out of the little pot I had them growing in the other day. Straw flowers. These are asters. I don't think anything's gonna happen. I'm not feeling very optimistic about that. Some cornflowers. Not necessarily the most optimistic about that either. Chives. They're doing okay. And then some sad carrots, and then I threw in some radishes the other day because it was my dad's birthday and he likes radishes, so I threw radishes in honor of my dad's birthday. And then this pot here had a dahlia, but the dahlia started dying, so I cut it. Maybe I can save the tuber. And then just some filler. I thought it was quite nice. I was proud of it at the time. Then there's this mess, which in the scheme of things it could look quite nice once I get some mulch in here, and get rid of some of these weeds. But I've got lavender and then some allium in the back, more lavender, a different variety of lavender than this one. And then more lavender that looks quite sad. And this allium is actually getting some color to its flowers, which is nice. Some low-growing hydrangeas. I think these are called Tidbit is the variety of hydrangea. So I have two here, and they turn pink. And then over here we have a lilac tree, and this is a Korean variety called Miss Kim. Shout out to my dad and my brother-in-law because they're the ones who kind of helped me getting this in the ground. So appreciate them and their assistance, because I would have been able to do it on my own, but it would have sucked. Or it would have just taken like a half hour longer, or 45 minutes to an hour longer. It would have taken longer than it would have if I didn't have them helping me. So for the garden here, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. But it's nice. It's nice. So here, and then along here, I have my potatoes. This is the one the other day that the potatoes were exposed, so I covered it with dirt. So there's that one growing by my snapdragons, which are lovely. And I actually don't know how to pronounce this one. I think it's a Gershom or a Gershom or something. I don't know the answer. And some cornflowers that are finally in flower. I planted these like mid-June, so on the scheme of things, it didn't take that long to germinate and grow and flower because it's mid-August, but it definitely, I should just plant them earlier next year. And they look so striking next to these marigolds. And I planted the marigolds to keep the critters out, and I don't necessarily think they've worked, but I don't think they've not worked. More snaps. And then I've got these Cosmos, and this variety is called Lemonade. I got it from a company called Outside Pride, and they're just like a really pretty buttercream neutral yellow that's really cute. And these snapdragons right here next to them are finally flowering again, but they're kind of stubby. I don't know why snapdragons get stubby. Maybe they've just matured quite a lot, but the stem is quite thick. It's a thick boy. And then beyond that is the origin point for my pumpkins, which this was the first one that pollinated, and you can see it's starting to change color. This is the jack-o'-lantern variety, the pumpkins I planted this year, and definitely nowhere near ready. I can still make a dent in it with my thumbnail, of course, and it also hasn't turned orange yet, so it's fine. And then this is a smaller one from that same vine, I'm fairly certain. This was the second one that pollinated, and it's by far the smallest out of all my pumpkins. So I'll show the others. Here's some leaves with powdery mildew. Nothing you can really do, that's just how it is here in Michigan. Summers are hot and humid, and pumpkin plants there's no airflow. So here's the second biggest one, and then I have two smaller ones right there and right there. It's only mid-August, so they don't have to be ready yet, as you can see. but they look good. I come out here every morning just to see what they've done overnight, and I'm always so excited and so happy. And unfortunately, you're gonna learn that I'm a zinnia monster because I love them. They're my favorite flower. This is the flower that I fell in love with growing, and I'm gonna keep them for a long time. This variety is called Queenie Lemon Peach, and they've been a very nice addition to my cutting bouquets. And since I'm here, I've got 3 little melons growing, and I've got some more growing on my trellis. The trellis is an old volleyball net that my family wasn't using anymore, so we've got more of the melons. I don't know if I said. So there's these 3 and a few more growing, and I've got this little guy over here too. I really should probably pick them up off the ground just because I have critters in this garden and they like to eat things, and I don't want to sacrifice the fruits of my patience, which are these melons. These are Minnesota midgets, I think I said, but they only get about as big as a softball, so they're not very big. They're very personal sized, which is nice, because then you don't have a whole lot of pressure to eat a giant melon. You ever like, you know, there's a lot of pressure to just eat a big melon all in one sitting because you don't want it to go bad, you know what I mean? I might be the only one who has that problem. So we've got more, you know, they're flowering and stuff, doing things. And then here I've got my pole beans. These are Kentucky Wonder is the variety. They're quite small. They're not ready for picking. I only harvested about 3 beans this morning. They weren't I don't have many big ones currently, but my hope is with these beans, you know, the nature of beans is supposed to be the more you pick, the more they produce. Like these ones are still quite small. They need another day probably, maybe 2. And then there's this one as well, which had some new flowers on it the other day. So hopefully we'll get some beans off of it still. I had some problems. My beans didn't really germinate when I planted them, so I had to do some successions after that first succession really, like, it just failed. So that first one, yeah, that first planting, it was not successful at all. So some following successions have actually, you know, they've done some things. I'm just, if I do pole beans again next year, which I still have seeds, so I probably will at somewhere if I can fit them in, I'll probably try and plant more than I have this year, just because I was trying to figure out how the space worked. I was trying to figure out how the trellis worked. And I also wasn't entirely sure how big the harvest was going to be with, again, just beans. The more you pick, the more they make. And I didn't want to be overwhelmed with green beans. So I'm just kind of saving them, blanching them and freezing them for a later date. And the flowers over here, got some cosmos that my mom bought at a nursery, and these were nice at the beginning of the season when everything was just like really green or in the process of growing. These are snapdragons. They're pink. You can't tell, but they're pink. These ones are cornflowers, more cosmos, more snaps, more cosmos, and more marigolds. Marigolds were my gateway flower. I started growing them in 2021 after 2020 when deer were eating all of my winter squash, and I was like, okay, well, we got to keep got to keep the critters away from my winter squash. And I heard that marigolds keep everything out, and my grandma and I put a really stunning marigold border around our garden that year. So marigolds were, you know, it was beautiful. It was very colorful. They're not my favorite flower. Again, zinnias. Zinnias are my gateway flower. Well, zinnias aren't my gateway flower. Zinnias are the flower I fell in love with, but marigolds I refer to as my gateway flower because they taught me just how lovely having flowers in your garden can be. We also have here a spot where the birds have been dusting themselves, and unfortunately it messed with the potatoes that I planted there. Look at this stunted little dude. Speaking of stunted, I need to do something with those snapdragons. I gotta pick them and put them in a vase. And here's my lima beans. I kind of planted them close together, and then I didn't realize that the pumpkins were going to encroach on them so drastically. But there's lima beans here, and they're starting to form pods, as you can see here. My grandma and I grew lima beans in 2021 as well, and I had seeds left over. They were quite nice. My grandma and I are the only people I know who actually like limas. This is my sunflower, and I love it. This was actually this corner over here was the first spot in the garden that I planted seed in on May 27th, and as you can see, it's finally in flower. And he's lovely. It took like 2 months for this thing to surpass me in height, and in the scheme of things, that's not very impressive. I'm only 5'1". I'm not tall, but I was so proud the day this thing got taller than me. And I've got more cornflowers there where the sunflowers got interfered with by a critter. And then another sunflower that got stunted when a critter ate it. And then I've got here more sunflowers. This is a Mexican sunflower. The variety is called Tithonia. And let's see. So that's what the Tithonia looks like, the Mexican torch. And just as a fun aside, the stem of the regular sunflower is quite prickly, and the stem on this it's just fuzzy, kind of like a peach. It's really fun to touch. I come out here and I fondle my Mexican sunflowers all the time. So as you can see, here's another sunflower, but the stem's really prickly. And I don't actually know what varieties all of these sunflowers are, aside from the Mexican torch, and this one over here is a lemon queen, but the rest I got like a mix. I got like a mix going on. Neighbor's dog is trying to intimidate me out of my own garden. It's working. What happened here? Well, that's disappointing. I'll have to do something about you. Did you just collapse under the weight of my expectations? Oh, you're so pretty. This is, I've got more zinnias back here, as you can see. Got a zinnia, and another zinnia, and a peach zinnia. And this was part of a mix that my grandma got at the senior center that I just planted from seed. So I didn't know what I was going to get. And they're all pink, and I love pink. But I don't have any orange zinnias this year, and I'm actually really sad about it now. I'll have to do some cleanup on that. I'm really disappointed. I didn't see those when I came out here this morning. That must have happened this afternoon. That sucks. These are more cornflowers. This variety is from the botanical interests, and it was called Black Magic. And then we had some heavy rain and winds yesterday, and these crumbled. So I actually had to tie them up and reinforce them to the trellis, like so. And since I'm here, I have on the trellis some honey boats, which is a variety of delicata squash or sweet potato squash. I've got, what is that, 4? I think that's 4. I can count. We're gonna pretend I can count. So I got 4 over here, and I've got 1 growing in here somewhere. I thought. I could be wrong. You just gotta get used to being wrong sometimes. I thought I had a new one too that had just been pollinated that was going. I'll go around to that side and see if I can find them. Oh yeah, here's a 5th one. 5, 6. Was there a 7th? I could have swore there was a 7th. Oh well, not a big deal. But we've got some going. It's got some growing. We'll keep them. So I got cut off. But basically what I was saying is I think I kind of went wrong because there's not a lot of airflow through here with the amount of flowers I have on this side of the trellis. So looking forward to next year, I think what I'm going to do is put anything trellising, I'm going to put it where all these flowers are this year. The trellis stuff is going to go in this row where the flowers are, and then that way that'll get some airflow through here on this side without impeding things. And then there's going to be a couple of other changes, I'm sure, but that's like the biggest thing I've realized in the last few days here is that I shouldn't be blocking the back of my trellis with flowers that are they're quite dense over here. So that's the lesson I learned there. Looking over to this side of my yard, this bed is going to eventually be a perennial border. I'm going to bring it out probably another 2-3 feet and bring it all the way across. I have plans for this bed over here, and I'll be sharing those in the next week or so. But over here we've just got some arborvitae that were here when I moved in, and then the iris here were also here when I moved in. I threw down some seed in the spring for anise hyssop. These should be coneflowers, and then some black-eyed Susans that I grew from seed that finally, oh my god, this was like the most nerve-wracking 2 months of my life waiting for these guys. Just some rosemary that I was growing in, that I needed to put somewhere, and then some sage that I had growing in a pot and it wasn't doing well, but it appears to be doing well here, so that's helpful. And then my next door neighbor kindly let me dig up some of her black-eyed Susans and put them over here. So that was very kind of her. And then over here, this soil, when I first came out here in the spring, was like cement. And knowing the nature of sunflower roots and the fact that they get kind of like a long taproot, I thought that would be helpful. So I just planted a forest of sunflowers here, apparently. I didn't realize they'd be like this. I guess that's just nature of gardening. So the bane of my existence in this yard, this stuff has been the bane of my existence. Somebody planted bamboo years and years ago, not knowing that bamboo was extremely invasive. So this whole bed back here was bamboo. We had to rip it out with a backhoe. And it's spread to the neighbors' yards as well. And actually there's parts of my lawn that some of it's spread over there. This bamboo keeps me up at night, people. But eventually I'm gonna just keep on top of it, keep attacking it, doing what I can. And then again, this is gonna be a perennial border. So just just all perennial plants with some arbs in the back for, I guess, privacy. You know, they're just a nice way of having some privacy, and then having in some perennial flowers and things like that, and just keeping that low maintenance and whatever. But that's a next year problem. I'm gonna deal with that later. If you've made it this far, thank you for taking the time to watch. I really appreciate it, and I will see you again next time. Bye.